Welcome back to the channel. In this video, I'll be talking about the fighter who potentially poses the toughest style matchup for the current lightweight champion, Khabib Nurmagomedov. And that fighter, as you can already tell from the pictures and the title, is Justin Gaethje. Justin Gaethje said after dispatching Edson Barboza in the first round of the main event of UFC Philadelphia that he sees that himself is the toughest style matchup for Khabib Nurmagomedov. And he said that several times before, I think before the Dustin Poirier fight, before the Eddie Alvarez fight, first coming in the UFC. He's been saying that for a good minute. I even think he might have mentioned it when he was in World Series of Fighting, but he's been mentioning it for a while. And even since the World Series of Fighting, really, his style has always been kind of a tough style matchup for Khabib Nurmagomedov. And I would have to agree, I agree with the statement that he is one of the toughest style matchups for Khabib, and he himself said he is the toughest style matchup for Khabib in the weight class. I agree mostly with that. And I'm going to say why I agree with that. With his forward pressure, his pretty much fearlessness, forward pressure, that power he presents in his hands and his strikes, his wrestling pedigree. You could say Khabib destroyed Abel Trujillo, who's a wrestler. You could say he beat Al Quinta, but you got at least some reasonable excuse. Well, no, it is no excuse for what happened to Abel Trujillo. Abel Trujillo got taken down 21 times. There's no excuse for that. He has a wrestling pedigree, but certainly isn't the level of Gaethje. But still, he did that to a wrestler, so he has fought a wrestler. Then he's fought Al Quinta, who has a wrestling background as well. But Al Quinta fought him on a day's notice and was training to fight a striker. He wasn't really training. He didn't have that wrestling cardio ready for that fight. And he still held his own pretty well, but he just really didn't have the cardio to really keep up with a fighter like Khabib. Especially you're going to go with the best wrestler in the weight class and pretty much one of the best wrestlers in the sport and maybe in the sport's history or MMA history. And you're not gonna get a full time to train for the fight, get a day notice change up. So he wasn't really prepared for that. But still, he handled his own against a fighter who's pretty savvy on the ground with a wrestling background in Al Quinta. But all that being said, Justin Gaethje is a better wrestler, or his pedigree is better than Al Quinta as far as wrestling. His wrestling pedigree is better than Al Quinta's. His better than Al Quinta's and much better than Abel Trujillo. I forget what level Al Quinta wrestled at, but Trujillo wrestled at D3. Whereas we all know Gaethje is a D1 wrestler, All-American. So different. There's levels to the wrestling, and Gaethje will be if they fight. Gaethje will be by far have the highest pedigree of wrestling that Khabib has fought inside the UFC. And then along with that pressure, going against Khabib, who's a fighter who relies on being a fighter who presses forward. He wants you to be on the back foot. He doesn't want to be on the back foot. When he's on the back foot, his shots aren't as effective. His cardio starts to wane a bit. You start to see him. Because he doesn't like to be in that position. When you put somebody in a position they aren't used to being in a position they aren't comfortable with, it starts to tax on their mental game. They start to think differently. They start to stress a little bit. Their cardio starts to fatigue because they're not in that autopilot mode. They're not in their ultra instinct mode where they're in that zone, so they're not really getting fatigued because they don't have to think too much because everything's going the way they trained it to go. But if Khabib is getting pushed back against a fighter like Gaethje with that wrestling pedigree, who's not going to be afraid to get taken down, going to be able to scramble, get back to his feet, and maybe even shoot some of his own takedowns if he want to. Along with that striking, that power, forward pressure against a fighter whose striking is really not the best. And you're going to be able to keep him on the feet, land big shots, and put him on his back foot. That's a very dangerous style. And with the durability of Gaethje and the lack of power, really, Khabib's not really a one-punch power fighter. He had one-punch knockout on his whole record. But other than that, he really is not a very heavy hitter on the feet. His ground and pound is heavy, but his striking isn't that heavy. His technique is pretty poor and awkward in a lot of ways. But all it really is just passable enough that he can wrestle with you and hold his own on the feet enough that he can eventually take you down. But like I said, Gaethje is a very tough style match. And also when you look at his been undefeated for a while, he has that, has that in his memory that he was an undefeated fighter for a good couple years. Where he went 15-0 before coming to the UFC. Was a World Series fighter and defended the belt 4 or 5 times. So he had that champion mentality. He had that undefeated mentality, or he knows what it feels like to be undefeated. That's a very good thing to have. That a lot of people, not Barboza, but Nurmagomedov has fought that they haven't had. Al Quinta certainly wasn't undefeated. Al Quinta wasn't undefeated. That's who he fought to get the belt. Then he defended his belt against Conor McGregor. So that's a champion right there. But Conor McGregor came off several years of inactivity. He was boxing. He wasn't doing MMA. Then he stepped up and fought what's called pretty much the toughest style matchup for him in Khabib several years out. But then again, no excuses. But as far as all that stuff aside, it's just based off what I said right there. Just the power of Gaethje, the forward pressure, the wrestling pedigree, that alone just there, and also the durability. So the forward pressure, the power, the wrestling pedigree, the chin, and the knowing what it's like to be undefeated, knowing what it's like to be a champion, that stuff is all factors in very like good as far as Gaethje, or favorably is Gaethje matching up against Khabib. So a very interesting style matchup. And Gaethje certainly can pose a different, and really any fight with Gaethje is in against anyone, he'll make it a fight. And he'll try to show you different things about the fighter that other fighters won't, because he's going to make it a fight. He's going to invite you into a fight. And you're really going to have to fight. You're not going to go out there and get no easy fight. Nobody has, I don't think there's anyone in the history that Gaethje has fought that has not had a hard fight with him. Everybody goes out there, either they're going to get knocked out, or he's going to get knocked out, or at least they're going to have a rough fight. So if Khabib fights, I know it's going to be a knockout or be knocked out, because Khabib's really not a knockout artist. But even if Khabib wins, he's going to be in for a fight, and he's definitely probably be the toughest challenge he's had in his UFC career. So to say, basically, to wrap this video off, I think Gaethje is definitely the toughest matchup, or definitely one of the toughest matchups for Khabib in this weight class. But as far as him getting there, he still has a bit of weight. He might have he was like 1 or 2 fights out from getting that shot, because the winner of Max Holloway versus Poirier is going to get the next shot. Then he might have to fight Tony Ferguson, or fight the winner of Cowboy versus Iaquinta. And those fighters right there can be a very tough style matchup for him. Like Cerrone could be a tough matchup for Gaethje. Iaquinta with his boxing and his wrestling defense could be a tough matchup for Gaethje, or really with his boxing and that, like his, yeah, but it's basically because he could be similar in a way to Poirier in Alvarez. Similar, I'm not saying the same, but he presents similar issues that Gaethje had in those fights. He couldn't present that with Cerrone, certainly with his knees to the body, elbows, and all that stuff. He can be a dangerous matchup for Gaethje, and Gaethje might not get that chance to fight Nurmagomedov. He might run into another roadblock, but right now he's in a very favorable position. If that fight ever does happen, I think he has good odds of beating Khabib, and definitely, again, one of the toughest style matchups for Khabib in the weight class. But that concludes this video. Thanks for watching. Like, comment, and subscribe, and come back for more videos. Peace.